they are. But people are welcome to have their opinions on that. Joining us now is David Dulio, political science professor at Oakland University. Good morning, David. How are you?
Good morning, guys. I'm well. How are you?
Good. Historically, has this happened a lot where the Supreme Court has been attacked when one side has more power than the other, when it's leaning one way or the other?
Not really. Over the course of history, we always see the views of the public shift in terms of how they look at, say, the presidency, the Congress, and the court. And as far back as I can remember, the Supreme Court has always enjoyed a pretty big advantage over the other two branches of government in terms of trust, legitimacy, etc. And it's only in the last, say, 10 years or so, maybe even shorter, that gap has shrunk, and the public's view of the court has dimmed a little bit.
Is that because all of us are looking at everything politically now? It seems like almost no organization can come up without getting split politically.
Yeah, I think there's, to some extent that's true, and for me, social media is a big player in this, that people can spout off on just about anything they want, and frankly make some unsubstantiated claims about things. And I think it's important to remember in this topic, remember the role of the court. James Madison, back in the founding, right, he was worried about two things. He was worried about tyranny of the majority and tyranny of the minority.
Yes.
And in terms of tyranny of the majority, the more dangerous aspect of it, the court was put in place to deal with that. The Supreme Court is there to protect a minority portion of the public, protect their rights, so that they can't just be overrun by majority opinion.
That's why they wrote the Constitution. That's why they got rid of the Articles of Confederation, right? For that very purpose, because they saw the real danger of a tyranny, not just from a monarch, but from the majority over individual rights.
And it's why we have checks and balances. It's why we have shared powers rather than one group of people being in control of one branch of government.
So you got this threat now, and it seems that more people are willing to kind of go that route. And Chief Justice Roberts said that, quote, "If the court does not retain its legitimate function of interpreting the Constitution, I'm not sure who would take up that mantle." That's what Chief Justice Roberts said. The court is very unique for that very reason. They're not supposed to be a political wing. They're not supposed to look at the polls to just make their deciding factors on their opinions for any case whatsoever. It is strictly the law as it is written, and the laws themselves have to abide within the framework of the Constitution, right?
That's on the money, and I think that the bigger component of it is when we start to inject opinions that not that they don't have any bearing on it, but that bring in other things that are beyond the scope of the court, beyond the role of the court, beyond what their job is, which is to interpret the laws of the land, interpret the language of the Constitution, and reasonable people can and do disagree on what certain laws, what certain text tells us, even how we could apply the Constitution to today's world. Reasonable people can certainly disagree about that, and the court does all the time. But that's their job, right? And when people start to say that, hey, look, just because they made a decision that I don't like, that means it's not legitimate, that's a problem. And we even saw from the press secretary of the White House that she claimed that the decision in Dobbs was unconstitutional.
Right.
Well, that's just not the case. That's exactly what the court is there to do.
Right.
The midterms are just a few weeks away, but we really don't know what's going to happen. If the Democrats were to keep both houses and they still have the White House, do you think the idea of court packing would rear its head again? Do you think there's a possibility that the Democrats might push to add justices?
I think you'll see some of them make that push, yes. But I don't think the dynamics have changed in any way that would make that possible. They would still need to change some law in some federal law, and they would need to do that over a filibuster in the Senate. And Joe Manchin has said time and time again that he is not inclined to do that. And I think even some polling out of West Virginia would reinforce that. And it's a long way away, but his reelection is in 2024. And he is down in polls to some Republicans, and not even out of the 40s in terms of his job approval rating. I cannot imagine Joe Manchin, who's taken some hits in his home state in the last month or so, would that you'd see him go that far again and vote to change first the rules of the Senate and then to change the law that would expand the court.
We've got about a minute, but I'm curious about this. When I was in high school, I had an algebra teacher who started to see a shift in the preparedness of students, so much so that he quit high school and went to junior high school to teach pre-algebra because his students weren't ready. In the 20 years that you've been at Oakland University, have you seen a shift in the understanding of civics amongst your students?
Yes.
And the preparedness they have when they come to the university?
Without question. And it's one of the reasons that we started the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University to try and, at least in our little corner of the world or southeast Michigan here, to try and boost civic literacy. Not enough people know enough about how their government functions. And it's a problem because in topics like this, if people knew a little bit more about, say, what the role of the Supreme Court was, they would probably have a little bit more trust and faith in it if they knew the background of why it was put there in the first place.
It is great to see young people have as much interest as they do. It's now moving them to that next step.
Absolutely. We just need to prepare them with the right resources and tools to be educated and informed participants in their democratic society.
Well, you're doing a great job there at Oakland University. We always appreciate you coming on as well. Dave Dulio, political science professor at Oakland University. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Good to see you. More to come here, 760 WJR.